Hello and welcome to the Physical Preparation Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Robertson, and I'll be joined on the line later today by Aaron Guyett. Now, before we jump into this week's show, give you a quick recap of the week that was, even though the weeks are far less exciting right now in the COVID quarantine than they normally would be. So I'm not going to ramble on too long today because I think there's only so many episodes where you can hear me talk about my adventures in grilling and doing puzzles and that sort of thing. But what's been going on? Well, obviously last week was our quote spring break, unquote. So the nice thing there was we got a reprieve from e-learning. However, spring break is now over. So e-learning is back in full effect. And my wife basically planned to take last week off. And so this week she is hammered with clients, which means, we're both scrambling once again. So I felt like we had kind of a rhythm and a routine last week, but now I'm quickly realizing that was really just because the kids had a break from school. So what is going on? Well, the cooking thing has hit full steam around here. So last week, Kendall and I were pretty fired up. We made Swedish meatballs one night. We made oven roasted potatoes. We made like this lemonade raspberry bars. So that was really fun. It took us like 3 hours in the kitchen, but she had an absolute blast with it. So she's loving learning how to cook. So we made that one night, which was a little kit from a company called Radish that does like kids cooking and teaches them how to cook. So it was fun to do that with her. And I think we did like 3 different types of eggs last week. So we taught her how to do scrambled eggs one day, we taught her how to do fried eggs another, and then how to do microwave eggs. So that was fun. And then Saturday, got some just awesome fillets from the local butcher shop that's just like 5 minutes from our house, and decided to do like an early Easter / early wife's birthday kind of dinner. So that was fun. Grilled some awesome bacon wrap fillets, cooked up again some potatoes, some Brussels sprouts. It was just a really awesome meal. So that was fun. That was a big portion of last week, I feel like, was teaching kiddos how to cook and how to be a little bit more proficient in the kitchen. Lots of puzzles. I mean, Kate is obsessed with puzzles. So he still loves Legos, and Legos are a thing, but right now we have like 8 different 500-piece puzzles laying around our house. Not all started at the same time, but just in lieu of being done. So we've been working on those, having a lot of fun with those. And then for me professionally, I've been cranking out the video content. So if you missed that, YouTube, Instagram, go there because I'm dropping something. It feels like every single day. I think right now I'm at day 28 maybe of my daily videos. So it's getting a little bit harder. Sometimes I just don't plan well enough. So like today, I've got to go and use something that's a little bit older, or I got to go in my basement and shoot something because I forgot to shoot something when I was at the gym today. So I'm still working on that, still working on just creating like a rhythm to it. But I feel like the content has been pretty darn good, gotten really good feedback on the fact that there is something coming daily. I know people want content, especially because a lot of you are sitting at home and you don't have other stuff to do. So you might as well be using that time to make yourself a better trainer or coach. So with that being said, that kind of segues nicely into last week. I talked about being a speaker and a presenter on the Coaches versus COVID platform. It was like a Zoom podcast type thing, but we had like 1,500 people in the audience on a Friday night at 8 o'clock. So that was awesome. Today, Bill and I decided we're going to just do like an impromptu Zoom call meeting. I think we gave people like 7 hours notice, and we had almost 80 people in a Zoom call. So that was fun. And we just got to talk about our response to COVID, how we've kind of pivoted at the gym, what he's done to continue seeing PT patients and assessing PT patients virtually. Talked a little bit about the new iFastU because we're really excited about that. But I've also gotten feedback from a couple people that are like, hey, it's awesome that you're doing this. Can you give us a heads up if you do anything bigger like that? So I've got 2 events coming up. You want to probably put on your schedule. If you're a soccer fan, you definitely want to be on this first one on the 29th of April. So 4/29, I'm speaking at the Seattle Sounders online event. I believe the time is like 4:30 Eastern, and then I do a Q&A at like 6 p.m. Eastern. So that's going to be a fun talk. Get to talk a little bit about kind of what I view my role as when I'm working in a team environment. And just, I think it's going to be eye-opening in the sense that it's probably not what a lot of people think. When they think of a strength and conditioning coach, especially when they hear that term, strength and conditioning coach, I think the perception is very different from what actually happens behind the scenes. So I'm excited to talk about that. And then the next day, if you're a basketball fan or you want to hear how we work with basketball players, Play Basketball is hosting, I believe it's a Facebook Live. And I'll make sure I get the links in the show notes here, but that's on the 30th of April, and that's at 5 p.m. And then I think I do like another smaller roundtable like 2 weeks after that. So anyway, all kinds of good stuff coming up. You got the daily content. iFastU is going to be reopening soon. On the 29th, you've got the Sounders event. On the 30th, you've got the Play Basketball event. Because look, this is where I'm at with this. I can't control a lot. I can't control when my gym opens back up. I can't control the fact that, some private clients aren't going to be able to weather this storm, right? And I'm going to lose some people in all this. But my thought process is very simple. Like, I'm going to continue to give. In fact, I'm going to give more possibly than I ever have before, with the hope that, when the time is right to work with some of you, that, we're going to make that happen. Because look, man, I got zero to lose here, right? Everybody else is in the same boat. So I'm tripling down on creating content, helping you, trying to make you a better trainer or coach. And so hopefully, whether it's YouTube, Instagram, or one of these live events, we're going to get to interact more in the very near future. So quick break, and then we're going to jump into this awesome show with my guy, Aaron. This episode of the Physical Preparation Podcast is brought to you by Momentous. For many years, I simply disregarded the age-old advice of getting liquid protein in either during or after workouts. Part of this was due to the fact that most had so much crap in them, I didn't want to put them in my body, and others might have been high quality, but tasted absolutely disgusting. However, if you're looking for a protein that's not only high quality, but also tastes amazing, you need to check out Momentous. I've been using Momentous for several months now, and I can tell you it's hands down the best tasting protein I've ever had. But it's not just me. I have numerous elite level athletes who are very picky with their protein powders, and every one of them raves about how great Momentous protein shakes taste. And while the taste is amazing, the best part about Momentous is that they're incredibly transparent with what goes into their product. You never have to worry about a tainted or dirty supplement, as all of their products are NSF and Informed Sports certified. If you'd like to try Momentous out for yourself, head over to livemomentous.com/Robertson and use the code Robertson20 to save 20% off your first order. Or if you want to try before you buy, get a free 3-pack sample sent to your house by using the Robertson sample code at checkout. Regardless of which option you choose, I guarantee once you try Momentous protein shakes, you'll never go back to anything else. Aaron Guyett is a devoted husband, father, Marine Corps Staff Sargeant, combat instructor, education director, and master coach with Living.Fit. He is also the founder of Innovative Results, which he sold in 2017, Battle Ropes Education, which he sold in 2019, and Leaders of Leaders. He specializes in helping people develop physical, mental, and spiritual strength that they never thought possible. In this show, Aaron and I bounce around a bunch of different topics. We start with his training philosophy and why if you aren't using battling ropes, you need to start. From there, we hit on the importance of fun and play, both in training and life, how to build better habits, the power of routines, and much, much more. Most importantly, I think Aaron's overarching message really resonated with me, and I hope it will for you as well. But enough for me, let's do this. Aaron, man, thanks so much for coming on the show here today. Super jazzed to talk to you. Could you start by just telling us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, super pumped to be here. Honored. I guess generally we'll just go like quick snapshot, right? Elevator pitch of Aaron. I believe that my purpose on this earth is to develop leaders of leaders. And I've had the great benefit of doing that in the Marine Corps, and then got out of the Marine Corps, started a gym in Southern California, owned that gym for 12 years, grew leaders inside of that gym, and then was able to then start educating people. So creating like even more impact by actually educating gym owners, educating trainers that are going to then take that information and bring it to clients and customers around the world. I had the great fortune of doing it for a lot of different organizations. Love my wife. She is incredibly supportive and encouraging in all of the crazy endeavors, like having a baby and then deciding to get my master's at the same
Oh,
time
nice.
while I'm running a gym, while I'm first starting to serve in the Marine Corps Reserves.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, so she's incredibly supportive and encouraging. I've got a daughter that's 7 years old, a daughter that's 4, and she's about to turn 5 in like 7 days.
Oh, nice.
Um, and she's like, see, I can color in the lines way better because I'm almost 5. She's a riot. And
That's
then I've got
awesome.
a son who is a year and a half, and he is a crazy climbing boy that I was really worried about my firstborn because she is exactly like me, but the female version. Now
Right.
I'm even more worried because my thirdborn is even more like me, and he's a boy. So I'm like,
Mm.
oh, great.
Got your work cut out
That's
for you, man.
yeah,
It's a full
dude.
plate. Full plate.
Yeah. Oh,
Very
yeah.
cool. So talk to me, like, what led you to the world of physical preparation? How did you get started working out and doing all this stuff that we do?
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing it in high school. So I've been running since I ran just because I liked running, which I know it
Mm.
sounds like really weird and
Yeah, I don't think we can
like,
be friends, dude.
yeah, exactly. I can't be friends with that person anymore. I actually just ran a marathon with my wife, and I was like, why did I do this?
Oh
This is
my
stupid.
gosh.
So was really into just the physical prowess of the human body, but kind of had no clue. Did weights in high school, and played a bunch of different sports and whatever. Joined the Marine Corps, and the Marine Corps is like, we're gonna make you stronger by breaking you down and
Yes.
just like crushing you. Um, got out of the Marine Corps and realized that there's actually better ways to build people's strength, build people's conditioning, that we can actually kind of follow some guidelines that are right in line with our physiology and biology. So started to study that and actually just helping people for free. And I was stuck in an office doing an Uber corporate gig, and I was still helping people and still serving
Right.
people like I was in the Marine Corps, because it was a cancer lab that I was working at. But I was so disconnected from the person and so disconnected from like actual seeing people get better in terms of whether it's physiologically or psychologically. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to start training. So I started at a huge chain gym and thought, man, I feel like I can do this better. And it's funny, so I got in physical preparation and that as kind of an aesthetic type of
Mm-hmm.
a thing. And I'm going to change people's bodies, but then quickly realized that the mind is inextricably connected to the body. And so when I change somebody's body, inevitably it will intrinsically and automatically change their brain and how they think about themselves, their confidence. And I fell in love with that. And I mean, I could never go back.
Yeah. No, I love that. So now kind of fill in those gaps because you're in a different place now than when you started where you're just training clients and doing that. So walk me through training clients and opening a gym and kind of where you're at now.
Yeah. So, yeah, when I got started, it was like all the wrong ways to do it. It was like cold calls. I was doing 1,000 cold calls a month at least,
Oh my
right?
gosh.
To build clientele, which actually I learned a lot, and
Yeah.
I learned how to handle no,
Yeah.
mainly. Yeah. So just doing that, and then like fat shaming and death shaming people into signing up, which I was told that that's how you're supposed to do it, and I just felt so uncomfortable
Right.
doing it that way. But then after a while, just from the things that I learned from my mom and dad, which was just hard work and discipline and staying focused, I was able to build not only a clientele, but then a wait list at this particular chain gym in Southern California. And that was in a matter of a couple of months. And I didn't have my bachelor's degree at the time. I barely had a certification, and it was probably like the cheapest, cheesiest certification. I can't even remember what it was called, like NCCPT or I don't know, something. Anyway, it was good. It got me started,
Right.
right? And I felt like, man, I feel like I could do this better because of, some of the like hard sales and stuff like that we were doing. And so I left that place and started training one client in my apartment. I wanted to do right by the contract that I signed. Later, finding out that in California, it's a non-compete state, so it doesn't really matter.
Right.
But I just wanted to do right by them, so didn't take any clients with me and had to start all the way over
Oh
again
my gosh.
in an apartment gym, with what was innovative results. My first idea of my company,
Right.
my organization, and learned through the school of hard knocks again, and still. That it's a lot harder to market and get clients, and to get clients to stay with you, and all of those things that we learn as businessmen and also trainers, right?
Yep.
And so started, obviously, just dove headfirst into continuing education, was doing a bachelor's in business management at the same time. So taking like one cert every single 6 months, and then going out and seeking. Masterminds weren't cool until a couple of years later, because that was like 2004, 2005. And they
Yeah.
were probably getting started. But
Yes.
so a couple of years later, got into masterminds, met Luca, met, some of the bigger names or whatever that we see now. But yeah, so then just built that up. Ended up going independent contractor route at a really rad place called Next Level Fitness in Irvine. And that place, actually, we kind of started this mastermind. So we would meet at like 4 a.m, because our first clients were at 5.
Right.
We would talk, we would learn about each other's like woes and problems in business and in retention and in programming and training and coaching and, all these things. And man, it was such a fruitful time as a coach, and to be educated also as a business person. And so immediately we would just apply it, and that was back when like we were using Craigslist and crushing it on Craigslist, or using Facebook and crushing it. I don't even, Facebook wasn't even, it was MySpace, I think, at the time, but crushing it on that. And then turning from a one-on-one model to a small group model, because you can get more people and still give them personalized programs, and then lower the cost, the barrier to entry, and all these things. It just super rad. And then I grew to so many clients that I had to hire another trainer. I had 120 clients. And so I was like, I better get another trainer to be able to handle this load. So hired my first trainer, hired my second trainer, hired my third trainer, partnered with a couple of guys, moved out from there, independent contractor to have another place. Then we had like 18 locations throughout Orange County. And then 2008 bubble hit, bam, and just like we went sideways. Everything got cut in half. And that was brutal. But then what we did was we just centralized. We ended up getting our first brick and mortar by so my business partner at the time, Corey Beasley, he owns Fight Camp Conditioning now. I don't know if you've heard of him.
Yeah.
I'm sure you have, right?
Yeah.
So we partnered in a brick and mortar space, and then just kept growing and developing our team. And then California came out and kind of hit us with another hard one, where you basically, the whole employee independent contractor thing was like wonky. And so essentially, if you had anybody that was training under your roof, they were basically employees. So to keep from getting sued or anything like that, I just changed it to an employee model, which was really tough. But what I learned in that was that leadership development and trainer development and continuing education is important. And just, even though I wasn't able to pay the highest amount, I wasn't paying the lowest amount, but we were constantly just feeding into our team and trying to give our team systems and all of the handles to move their businesses along, even if it was kind of now under the umbrella of our business together. But creating ownership with those trainers and coaches. And so about at that time, Corey Beasley went off to do Fight Camp Conditioning, and then I started developing it on my own, and then got basically hit up by Onnit Academy to be an educator. And Onnit Academy was like, hey, we would really love for you to teach battle ropes curriculum, write the 2-day curriculum and teach it for Onnit Academy. Would you be interested in doing that? And I said, well, honestly, I've got to pay credit where credit is due. And I would have to call John Brookfield, because he's the reason why I got into battle ropes. So gave John Brookfield a call. I did his level 1, level 2, right? Because we were always bringing in experts to our gym space at the time. And he was basically, I gave him the idea. I was like, look, I'm not going to teach what you taught. What I've discovered is that the variables that we use to increase and decrease power output from a mechanical physics standpoint in, barbell and body weight and whatever. I've figured that out with waves and actually studying wave physics. And so if I can teach that, then people have a solid way to train power, to train strength, to train endurance, and a solid way to actually quantify that training with ropes instead of just getting people tired. And I want to bring that to everybody. And hey, every single time I talk about ropes, of course I'm going to talk about you because you're the reason. He was like, that sounds amazing. Just let me know if you need any help. And so then it was off to the races with the education in it. My wife was like, we are moving back to home, which is for her is Northern California. We were in Southern California. So I had to mourn the loss of selling Innovative Results early, and then ended up selling Innovative Results, moving up north and just going sole educator. And that's where I'm at now. Obviously not with Onnit Academy anymore. They centralized Austin. I wasn't going to move to Austin. My wife's like, not no, but hell no. It's the same. Same response you gave when I was like, how about we move to North Idaho where I grew up? She's like, not no, but hell no.
I love it, man. I love it. And I'm going to come back to this battling ropes comment because there's some stuff I want to unearth there. But before we dive into that, let's start with a really general question because, you're known for ropes, but I mean, you ran an incredibly successful gym. So would you mind by just giving us like an overview of your overarching philosophy when it comes to training people? Because I think that's valuable for a lot of people.
Yeah. So if we're talking sort of Gen Pop, which is our average clientele, so these are stay-at-home moms and dads, middle manager, men and women, upper management, men and women, and then even entry-level men and women, and entry-level into whatever job or career that they're doing. We all are plagued by the couch, computer, car, and cell phone, right? And just very sedentary lifestyles kind of look at and deliver to each client. Our thought was like, let's improve their quality of life. And so actually one of the greatest things that I believe Innovative Results is still doing is kind of providing recess for adults. Right. And so adults, like we feel like that, we have to stop playing. But the thing is, if you look at any other animal out there, they're playing even into their old age. And it does help with their, keeping their brain sharp, keeping their body sharp. And we feel like we have to put it aside. Oh, I'm an adult now. I'm adulting. So I'm going to put away play. So we called it, the fitness playground. And so it was a lot of open space, a lot of learning to use your body in the ways that you used your body on recess, right? Like getting up on bars and doing monkey bars and ropes and battle ropes and kettlebells and, throwing weight around and picking up sandbags and, using partner stuff, which unfortunately during COVID-19, you just have to use your family as your partner.
Right.
But yeah, so bringing fun into fitness again and kind of changing the way people look at it instead of thinking about it like, we're Americans. So it's like, we're going to work at work and then I'm going to go work out for my workout and I'm going to work and I'm going to get better. And while all those things are, I think, totally solid and good, can we infuse some play back into it and make it fun? And then can we make sure that we're moving in all of our planes of motion? Are we creating conditioning and capacity in all of our energy systems or metabolic pathways, right? So this is kind of, again, generally sweeping across the board. Now, obviously, with specific clients with specific needs, you specialize and you write specialized programming and stuff. But generally speaking, I should be able to, have capacity of power. I should be able to access power when I need it. If it's to get out of the way of a moving bus, save my child, or, do an explosive vertical jump. I should have access to that. I should have access to basic strength. Can I lift up, these heavy groceries without hurting myself, or these heavy things in my garage without hurting myself? Or, can I move this other body that, in sport effectively? And then can I do things for long periods of time and not get totally wasted, physically? And then can I do it in all ranges of motion, all planes of motion, and do it competently? So when I get to my end range, it's not a vulnerable position because I've trained that position enough times. And so just always thinking through those kind of general things with all of the programming. And then so fun. And then on the other end of that, teaching. Like, the human loves to learn.
Yep.
And so the better you teach those specific things that you're training them, the better the walking billboard and talking billboard you have out there.
Yep.
Right? They go out and they're able to say the things that you're doing. They're able to articulate it well because, when you're teaching it, you're not, if you dive, I have this problem all the time. I dive too deep into the science and people are like, what the hell are you talking about? So can I simplify it so people, boom, they pick it up quick,
right,
and they're able to then relay that to other people. And all of a sudden now you got people coming at you saying, hey, I want to get what, that person got. They have access to power like never before, instead of saying, their phosphagen metabolic pathway. Right. It's like, okay, that's cool. But, and we could teach that too, but how can we simplify it for better traction? Right.
Yeah. I love it. So now let's take this dive, because we were emailing before the show and I'd like to ask, what things are you passionate about? What are you interested in? What are you learning about? And in our email exchange, you made a pretty bold statement that went something like this: battling ropes are the most powerful training tool you're not using. So I would love for you to expand on that a little bit.
So, talking about everything that we just talked about, right?
Yep.
Seeing like, hey, I need to create power, strength, endurance, kind of the general terms, right, of the metabolic pathways in all ranges of motion and all planes of motion for all of my joint complexes and tissues, right? Nervous tissue, soft tissue, muscular tissue. So how do those things adapt? Well, we know they adapt with force, but none of those cells, none of that tissue says, hey, I need a barbell only in order to create an adaptation. It's just, they just react and respond to the force loads that we put through it. So specific adaptation to impose demands. If I'm using specific adaptation to impose demands, I just need to impose those demands in the ways in which my body moves, right, to create that adaptation. So what if you had a tool that you could move in whichever way you wanted to move it? You could quantify the variables that you use with that tool to understand when you've increased the power output so much that you're now working with and creating adaptations for the power capacity or the strength capacity or the endurance capacity. So obviously you need to learn a little bit of work rest ratios and things like that.
Sure.
And then just ensure that, I'm actually hitting those high power outputs. And so if force is mass times acceleration, force times distance over time is power output. If I could see in a wave those variables that we use all the time, even if you aren't calculating it like a nerd like me, when you're using it with body weight or barbell or dumbbell or kettlebell or whatever, we're using it all the time when we coach. We're cueing with it and all this stuff, right? And we're writing programs with it. So what if I could see those variables in a wavelength?
Yeah.
And then I knew when the wave got bigger, that now I'm increasing my distance part of that equation, right? As the wavelength, shrinks and gets tighter, then I'm actually reducing the amount of time. So increasing speed,
right?
Reducing the time, which increases power output. If I have more mass in that wave, right? If I'm moving more mass in that wave, or I upgrade from an 1.5 inch battle rope to a 2-inch or 2-inch to a 3-inch, right? That I'm increasing the mass part of the force in the equation. And then also anytime I'm adjusting distance and time, I'm also adjusting that acceleration piece of the mass times acceleration. So if I can see that in a wavelength, well, now I can coach it, quantify it, program it, and I can get power if I want to train power, and I can do it in whichever range of motion that battle rope can move, or strength, and I can do it in whichever range of motion that battle rope can move. So now I can move not just sagittally bilaterally, which is the norm, right, for most of our movement stuff that we do in gyms, but I can move through the transverse plane. I can move through the frontal plane, and not to say that we can't do that with our body's weight or sandbags or other tools. Absolutely, we can, but I can absolutely do it with just one battle rope, 1.5 inch, 50-foot long battle rope. I can now just, if I know how to, if I get the person to walk forward Now they have to move more of the mass of that rope, right? And they're going to have to move it faster in order to get those waves to go all the way to the end. That means their wave is going to be bigger, right? That means their wave is going to be faster. So now I'm adjusting those variables, and I can adjust it on the fly. It doesn't take as long to, take the weight off, put new weight on, any of those things. And again, I'm not poo-pooing those other tools. I use those tools all the time and love it. But if we really understood what's going on with the battle rope, we would be using it all the time.
Yeah.
But no, we just see it as the finisher in upper body cardio something like that.
Dude, that's and I'm going to just hold my hand up here and admit the fact that that's how I use it. And honestly, it's great hearing you talk about all this, because I hadn't really thought of it in that way. And I'm going to have to dig more into this because, I'll be honest, a lot of my athletes oh man, I kind of torch their legs. They want a little bit of a street pump. Let's just do some battling ropes and finish it off. They get a little bit of gun show, and we can just go on about our day, right?
Yep.
No, that's awesome, man. That's awesome. Well, I'm definitely going to dig more into that.
I'm going to give you free access to the fundamentals course that we have and that advanced course that we have. So then you can just nerd out, dive into it head first, and let me know what you think for sure.
I love it, man. Thank you. So I feel like just talking training with you, though, would be a disservice, because you're such a well-rounded guy. You've got this wide range of experiences. So I want to switch gears a little bit, and we're going to jump around. But I want you to talk to me first about this leaders of leaders concept. What does that mean?
Yeah, so it actually came from a Gallup poll article. It was this whole idea of, instead of being a leader to gain followership and just have people do what you're telling them to do. So instead of seeking to be served as a leader, you're seeking to serve and create other leaders. Imagine the dynamic, imagine the social impact, national impact, international impact, that if every single leader that was in a leadership position took it upon themselves, took responsibility and said, every person that's in my sphere of influence, to include my wife and my kids, but especially, as well in business, right? Or in a church, or in government, or in the military, right? If I, in my spheres of influence, if I poured into them to help develop them as leaders, how much more impact would that make? I mean, and that was the reason for me shifting to being an educator. It's how much more impact can I make now in the fitness industry if I'm teaching, if I'm teaching other people that are teaching other people, right? And so it was this whole idea of leaders of leaders. And so, and what's behind leaders of leaders. And to be honest, it's kind of a passion project, and it's, I'm studying philosophy. I'm studying why humans believe what they believe, what is belief, all these things to really try to, for me to understand, okay, what is leadership? What's my understanding of leadership? What's my identity in leadership? And then how do I help develop other leaders? And, other leaders that you have under you or around you, they're going to have different strengths. They're going to have different personalities. They're going to have, a different character. So how do I work with that to get the most out of that person? The way I'm going to develop my first daughter is totally different than how I'm going to develop my second daughter. They're two totally different human beings.
Yes.
And so how can I create a leader out of each one of them that is looking forward to developing leaders in their spheres of influence in their lives?
Yeah, no, that's cool. And I feel like this is going to be somewhat maybe cut from the same cloth, but another thing that we were talking about before the show was this idea of post-traumatic growth. So talk to me a little bit about that. Yeah,
and so that actually predated the leaders of leaders, predated even innovative results and my being an educator in the fitness industry. And it really, I had post-traumatic stress disorder. I had PTSD, right? I went to combat and saw a bunch of stuff. And it's funny, I'll talk to some of my buddies, some of my Marine buddies or whatever that we went to combat with, who share some of the same experiences, some of the same woes. And then we also talk about, man, I've learned so much about PTSD. I realized that I had PTSD from my childhood, and I experienced traumatic scenarios that have changed the way my brain works, now. But the cool part is we as humans our brains are so plastic, right? We have such neuroplasticity that we don't have to stay victim to the trauma that we experience. We can change PTSD into PTG, and we can actually learn to grow from that trauma and have those failings or those situations that we just found ourselves in or whatever that were so traumatic or happened to us that were so traumatic, and how can we learn from them and become better human beings after the fact. And so then that's this whole idea of post-traumatic growth, and they're just starting to kind of skim the surface or start to dive into this whole idea of PTSD and PTG because of all these combat vets that are coming back from Afghanistan and Iraq. But it was around far before that. It's happening in homes. If there's sexual abuse, if there's physical abuse, if there's verbal abuse, emotional abuse, all this stuff. Those are all traumatic experiences as well. Getting into a car accident, traumatic experience, and it's going to change the way our brain works a little bit. Stuff like that. So yeah, I'm just a perpetual white belt, and just always
Yeah.
trying to learn,
Yeah.
okay, how can I change the way that I experience this scenario or view or have perspective on this scenario. And then I happen to get involved with something called the Special Forces Experience, and you can find them at thespecialforcesexperience.com. And then we just came out with something called Way of Trials or Way of the Trials. And basically it's harnessing this idea of post-traumatic growth. And so it's on purpose putting people through a traumatic experience with obviously boundaries, things like that, so we don't hurt people, but putting them through a traumatic experience so that they can grow into being better humans, better men, and better contributors in our society, better business owners, better military, better veterans. It spans the spectrum,
Right.
of the type of person. And so I feel like I'm just the boots on the ground. Like I get to look at it from a 40,000 foot view when I study it and think about it, but then I get to also be boots on the ground and just watch, as it happens and see how it happens differently for each person. And man, I love that as an opportunity, because that's my narrative, that's my story.
So, and it's funny that you say that, because I literally wrote that word down. When we start talking about this, I feel like it's really instructive if we learn about the stories that either we tell ourselves or that other people tell themselves, and how they look at those stories, right? Because like you just alluded to, you can look at the same story through a lot of different lenses, and it can impact you differently based on that. So I think that's just a really important thing. If you haven't done this, and maybe I think as you get older, there's this natural inclination to kind of pull back the layers of the onion, so to speak, or peel back the layers of the onion of yourself. But when you're younger, maybe you don't have just that level of self-awareness to like really peel things back and try and think about, okay, like, why am I the way that I am? What stories am I telling myself? And how are they impacting me, either positively or negatively?
Yeah. Oh yeah. 100%.
So this will kind of lead seamlessly into my next topic, because I know you're big on belief systems, but then you even take it a step further, and you don't talk about just like understanding them, but actually using them to build your life. So would you take us down that rabbit hole a little bit of taking your belief systems and then using that to create a better life for yourself?
Yeah. So like you said, peeling back the onion. And so I started asking myself these questions, like, what do I believe in, and why do I believe in that? And is my belief in that, is that helping me, be a better, husband to my wife, or be a better father to my children, or be a better business owner to my business, a better, chief instructor to my Marines that I'm instructing? And if it's not, okay, why is that? And am I able to adjust it and change it? And then really, beliefs. So we build our belief system, and oftentimes it just happens to us, right? But inevitably we still choose into it, whether we subconsciously choose into it or consciously choose into it. And then our belief systems sort of build us, right? Or the same could be said with our habits, right? And I think that's like a James Clearian thing, right? It's like, we choose our habits, and then our habits, basically become us. That's who we become. And I probably totally ruined it in my paraphrase, but
Yes, no, we know what you mean.
but yeah, so that, I mean, that's absolutely it. And so, I'm constantly like, why do we exist? Why am I here? What is my purpose? What are my values? Why do I value them? And then I think most importantly, it's like, okay, once you've got those kind of core beliefs, it's like, okay, what does that look like when you're walking it out? And probably the simplest way I've been able to have actual control in this is, okay, let's create some disciplines, or let's create a morning routine, and have this morning routine not just be, most people, it's like, yeah, that you're going to naturally brush your teeth and not really have to think about it. But what if you took like brushing your teeth, shower, making your bed, and then meditating, and then, journaling, stream of conscious journaling or something like that, and then studying, and then what if those just became automatic, just like brushing your teeth? I know for a fact that that's going to change the course of your life for the rest of your life.
Yep.
And so, I started with just like a simple saying, I'm awake, I'm alive, I'm energized, and now it's turned into like, essentially when I moved to Northern California, it was like, okay, when I negotiate my terms for the education director position at Living.Fit, how am I going to ensure that I can keep this morning routine, keep these habits protected, so that I know that I'm going to serve Living.Fit better, I'm going to serve my family better, I'm going to serve all my church better, I'm going to serve all these people in my life, all these spheres of influence better. And so what's funny is my morning routine kind of was like my splash in the face with cold water to get me to just be a little bit more energized for my clients. And then it became like, no, this is the way that I'm going to develop who I am for the rest of my life. And so now it's something that I absolutely covet. Of course, I have kids, so I've got to wake up at 4:30 in the morning to really do it.
Right.
But this morning, at 4:30 in the morning, I was done with my morning routine at 6:30, and then was able to drive to a place with better Wi-Fi than my mountain Wi-Fi, and then hop on this podcast. So
that's awesome, man. That's awesome. So I'm a little out of order here, but now I want to know, can you give us some insight into, you already talked about why morning routines are important, but talk to us about your morning routine and maybe how you settled on that.
Yeah. So again, this has been in development for about 15 years. I give that caveat because I'm like, don't feel like you got to do 2 hours for your morning routine, because obviously you're probably going to fail, right? Just like I'm going to lose 30 pounds in 10 days. Like, nah, well,
right.
Probably. You probably yourself in 30 days is what's going to happen. Yeah. So it started with just kind of words of affirmation. And then it was words of affirmation connected to like a vision for my future.
Okay.
And then that just started to kind of expand and grow. As a Christian, for me, it was like, okay, now part of my words of affirmation is going to be, time with God. So scripture and prayer.
Yep.
And then, the next thing, it's like, okay, not only vision for my future. So what's my best possible future, which is like a positive neuroplasticity training thing that we can do. But also then I want gratefulness, because I want my brain to automatically see all of the good things, even when I'm in the midst of this horrible storm, right? Like, for instance, the midst of COVID-19 or whatever, it's like, I can't help but see the silver linings, like the human innovation and the human unity and all these good things that are happening, because conditioning myself with a morning routine that's building that positive neuroplasticity training and reinforcement, then of course, obviously I want to be fit. So I'm going to put some exercise into that. I'm not getting any younger, so I need to maintain my mobility and stability. Right. So I'm going to work that into it. I love coffee. So I'm going to pour a cup of coffee and just savor it. Yeah. My wife's love language is acts of service. So I'm going to do the dishes, during that. And so I just always trying to, okay, let's pull out to 40,000 foot view. And this is kind of just, I think, a gift that I've been given as my brain works. I'm hyper analytical. So I'll do 40,000 foot view, 10,000 foot view, boots on the ground, 40,000 foot view, 10,000 foot view, boots on the ground. So from a 40,000 foot view, what is my morning routine doing for the people around me in my life and for my future? Yeah. And their future. And then, 10,000 foot view, okay, gets a little bit closer this week, these particular relationships that I need to develop and connect with. how do I look amazing with when I'm talking with Mike Robertson, and then and in that day, how is my wife gonna receive the love that I'm trying to share with her?
Sure.
Right.
I love it. So this kind of tails with that as well, because I know one other thing that you're very passionate about is this idea of habit formation. And obviously this is a very popular thing on the internet these days and just in the world. So if somebody wants to improve their habits or cultivate better habits, what are some tips or tricks that you might use there to help them out?
So start small and win big. Start small so you can be consistent. Being consistent means you're going to win big because consistency is it. If I can consistently save $1 a day, I'm going to have a lot of money at the end of the year, right? Or rather, I should say invest $1 a day.
Yep.
I'm going to have a lot more money at the end of the year than if I'm okay. Once I get that bonus, then I'm going to go ahead and invest that. And it's like, what if you don't get the bonus? What if when you get the bonus, something happens? You're just leaving way too much up for chance. Whereas, consistency is going to be better served in small doses. And so, just always starting small. And so think about is it fitness? Is it mental? Is it just pick one? Don't pick 20, just pick one. And then do that thing. And so in the same way that I would change somebody's diet, I would say, hey, I want you to replace one bad thing that you could see yourself never touching again, right? I don't need to touch chips for the rest of my life, or I don't need to touch, and maybe you do, so that's not the one. I don't need to touch pop or soda or Coke or whatever you call it from whatever region you're in, right, for the rest of my life. So then it's okay, what am I going to replace it with? Okay, I'm going to replace it with 20 ounces of water or something like that every time I have a craving for it. And so I'm going to do that consistently for a month. And if at the end of the month I'm not thinking about it and I'm just naturally doing it, then I can choose a new habit. I can choose a new food replacement or whatever it might be. And then in 2 years, your diet is completely changed, right? You've done a 180 on your diet, and you don't feel any different. You don't feel like it was difficult or rough or hard or whatever. Yeah, and so the same exact thing with habits. What's the one thing that I can do? If you love coffee, how are you going to earn your coffee tomorrow? Do I need to do 5 minutes of stream of conscious journaling and then I can pour that cup of coffee? And because I want to peel the onion back. Or am I going to spend 5 minutes being grateful, thinking about all the things that I'm grateful for in my life before I pour that cup of coffee? I'll usually do stuff like that. I'll hold my coffee hostage. I have to drink 20 ounces of water before I can have a cup of coffee.
Right.
Well, now I drink 20 ounces of water every morning. And it was amazing how actually that helps get the GI tract moving way more than coffee did. So,
yes,
it's
the
stuff
whole,
like that.
Yeah, no, it's the whole cue habit reward, right? I think
Absolutely.
That was Charles Duhigg's book, but and I think that's one of the things too that, we have the cue and the habit a lot of times, but we don't always give ourselves the reward.
Yeah.
So it doesn't work nearly as well if you don't have that reward on the back end to kind of bring it all together.
Yeah. Yeah. Cue, routine, reward.
That was
right.
That was it.
Yeah. So and those are the two books that I would recommend too. Charles Duhigg's The Power of Habit. And then after you read that, because it's going to dive deeper into the science, then James Clear, and then James Clear, Atomic Habits, because he's going to put some fat handles on that science.
Yeah. No, I love that, man. All right, my guy, big question time. If you could alter the space-time continuum and give young Aaron Guyett one piece of advice about training and or life, what would it be?
It would be to listen to your wise counsel, because that came late for me. And the thing is, young Aaron would be like, whatever, bro, not listen. But if he could listen,
right,
then man, if I would have just listened to my wise counsel, it would have saved me from so much heartache and pain. Which the heartache and pain is the reason why I am who I am nowadays. So I'll never take it back. But I do regret things, and I do think, man, that really sucks. But yeah, that would be the thing right there.
Yeah, that's good advice, man. All right, my guy. Last but not least, lightning round. 4 questions, fairly short in nature. You can make your answer as long or short as you'd like. All right?
Yep.
Number 1, what's your career highlight so far? It could be as a coach, as an educator, really what stands out to you as far as what you've done in the fitness industry?
Yeah, I was trying to think like accolades and events and stuff like that and travel and whatever. But to be honest, like the thing that kept just popping up is like, and it happens often, but it's seeing the light bulb go on in somebody's head about
Mm,
something that I'm trying to teach them or train them or coach them in, and
yeah.
seeing that light bulb going on is, man, it's incredible. I like, it's a drug, it's like so amazing.
Yes. Number two, and we kind of already covered this, but what made you really like take that plunge, other than maybe your wife, of going from gym owner to educator? Was there something that was just like, man, I think I'm ready for this change, like professionally?
Yeah, I sort of, happened across it. But then as I was doing it, the cool part was, they crossed, right? I was able
Yeah.
to educate for the last 2 or 3 years of owning a gym. But what I realized is my impact for people was just going to be far greater because I'm now teaching trainers and coaches that, they have hundreds of people that
Yeah.
they're connecting with. And so I just thought, man, like, I would be doing a disservice if I didn't move into education just from an impact standpoint.
Yeah. I love it. Okay. Number three, I'm excited to hear about this one. Talk to me a little bit about your squad. I mean, I know these are like your people, right?
Yeah. So my wife, she basically, when we had kids, she was like, I'm going to do like the opposite of what modern women are telling me to do or whatever. And I'm going to be a stay-at-home mom. I want to invest heavily into our kids. So it wasn't even that she did it for me. She did it because she felt like, man, this is really what I feel like I'm called to do. And
Yeah.
I want to be there every step of the way. Well, she also lost her mom
Oh my
when
gosh.
she was 23 years old.
Yeah.
So she spent a ton of time with her mom, and then losing her mom, it just showed her how important connecting with the kids were, or with
Yeah.
our children was, before we even had kids. And so she just wanted to make that the highest priority. And then along the way, she just became super supportive and encouraging of essentially anything that I was doing that was, providing or protecting or creating a better environment and bringing more love into the home. So yeah, and we just continually, like, we're not perfect and we have our tiffs and things like that,
Sure.
but we just continually invest in each other. I give her my 100%, she gives me her 100%. And that, I think, is just an incredible example to our kids. And then, yeah, like my first daughter, Hannah, like, did you ever see the movie Hannah?
Uh-uh.
Hannah. That was a bad kill, Hannah. Like, this dad basically like trains her kid in like fighting and survival and like
Okay.
archery and like all these like crazy things to just make her like this kind of like super soldier or whatever.
Right.
And so that's kind of, obviously not as militant and not as like crazy or
Right.
whatever, but that's kind of like my thought with my daughters. And I'll have friends tell me that all the time, like, bro, I'm kind of afraid to see how your daughter is when she's 16 years old. Like, I'm afraid for the guy that tries to make a move and she doesn't want him to make a move.
Right.
And so, yeah, like, I get to walk my kids through, like archery and self-defense. Like yesterday, we spent about an hour wrestling and then learning like basic jujitsu, but then also like the importance of self-defense and like violence. And I know it sounds like horrible or whatever, but it's like, man, if you're getting hurt or whatever, like there has to be an incredible amount of violence to
Right.
stop this person from doing. But then more importantly, you should be head on a swivel, seeing the anomalies in the environment, and you
Yes.
should be putting yourself in those situations. So learning
Yeah.
those things too. And then of course, like for me, reading is one of like my most like coveted things. Like this is where I get to learn from other people's mistakes and truly listen to wise counsel on pages, and
Yes.
stuff like that. And so to watch my first daughter learn how to read and now like reading, and then my second daughter is now learning how to read, like it's just such an incredible experience. And
Yeah.
then for all of them, like watching them learn how to manipulate and deal with this thing called gravity in the ground, right? And
Yes.
it's just so cool to watch the development and see how it's different with each one too,
Yeah.
right? And now our third he's really trying to pretend that gravity doesn't exist. So
Yes.
I'm incredibly grateful that he has a thick skull like mine. But at the same time, I'm like so afraid that he's gonna hurt himself way
Yes.
like beyond repair. Yeah. But yeah, I love them almost more than anything, right? I mean,
Yeah.
God is the thing that I love more than my wife and my kids. But man, like I would do anything for them. I had a buddy call me the other day, and he thought that the Marine Corps was getting stood up. He's like, "Hey man, are you getting activated because of this COVID-19 thing or whatever?"
Right.
And I was like, "No." And I probably shouldn't say this on air or whatever, but I'm going to anyways. But I'm like, but honestly, if they tell me that I've got to go, it's like I'm gonna tell them to kick rocks because I got to be here with my family during this
Right.
thing. I guess my time is done in the Marine Corps. I've served 16 years. I guess I'm early retirement. Then I guess I don't get to collect the
Right.
retirement that I want. Now, obviously, that's not going to happen. And the position that I'm in, we wouldn't get activated for something like that. We would get activated to train people. So that's probably not the scenario. But I was like, I mean, that's how much like my
Yeah.
family needs me.
No, I respect that a lot, man. That's why I wanted you to talk about that a little bit. Very cool. Okay, last but not least, number 4. What's next for Aaron Guyett? What are you working on? What are you excited about? Anything.
Yeah, so Living.Fit, we're going to be launching some pretty rad programs to be able to utilize kettlebells, to be able to utilize battle ropes in ways that obviously most trainers and coaches, as well as clients, don't know how to use them. Wayoftrials.com is basically like 12-week trials to help create self-transcendence, to not be the victim,
Yeah.
to see PTG instead of PTSD, as well as going up into the Canadian bush and doing something called the process, which is like an 8-day special forces experience. So it's like you're in a selection. It is something that is fantastic, radical, incredible to be a part of. And so actually, because of all this COVID-19, I think it just got shifted to October. It was in May. So that 8-day experience got shifted to October. And then, yeah, the Way of the Trials is like the virtual version of that, if you will. And then Leaders of Leaders, like it's the project that's on the back burner right now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in the middle of writing a book that is called Leaders of Leaders, and it's kind of dialing in, what are the things that leaders need to develop in themselves in order to develop other leaders, and then how would they go about developing other leaders. And I'm just really excited because I know in 4 or 5 years, my time with Living.Fit will be done. I'll have hopefully hired myself out of my own position
Right.
there, and then that thing will be running on its systems and on its personnel that it has, and I'll probably be moonlighting as a Special Forces Experience cadre member. I'm the chief of physical strategy with them, but then all of my efforts going to be in Leaders of Leaders and something that I'm deeming the leadership ranch. So basically taking the 10 acres that I have and making it a training ground to then go out into the wilderness and kind of experience some trauma of our own, but to really glean and learn developing yourself as a leader and developing other leaders. So, yeah.
That's awesome, man. So you got a few things on the plate, is basically what you're
Oh,
telling
yeah.
me. Yeah?
Always. I don't know how to not do it. Luca, I had a podcast with him, and he was like, "Oh, you're like me. You don't know how to say no." And I was like, "I know.
Yeah.
I mean, I do say no, but probably not as much as I should. I don't know.
I
I
love it,
love
man. I know. I'm the same way. I love having a lot of stuff going on. So, Aaron, you've been amazing to chat with today. Really appreciate you taking the time. Where can my listeners find out more about you and all the great stuff you have going on?
Check out Living.Fit, of course, and just that, right? Everybody's
Yeah.
like, living.fit.com. Like, no, just Living.Fit. That's it. Specialforcesexperience.com or wayoftrials.com. And that'll take you kind of to the same place, and then you can figure it out from there. And then I've got leadersofleaders.org. But again, remember, it's a passion project. It's kind of like
Down the line.
really built out as a business model. But yeah, and on Instagram, Aaron Guyett, Leaders of Leaders, battle rope exercises. Any one of those things, you could see some of my stuff in some of my areas that I teach.
I love it, man. Well, I'll make sure we get all those links in the show notes. But again, Aaron, man, thanks so much for coming on, buddy. This was really great.
Mike, it was an honor to be here. I'm super pumped. I'm super pumped that we could do it virtually too.
Yes. Yeah, no, this was great, man. All right, buddy. Have a good one, okay?
Yeah, you too.
All right, my friends, that does it for this week's show with Aaron. Sincerely hope you enjoyed it. Like I said up top, Aaron's message just really resonated with me. He's just a really authentic, transparent dude. Obviously a pretty darn successful dude, but somebody that I really enjoyed chatting with, and I hope his philosophy and his message resonated with you as well. Now, before you go, I've got one of two asks for you. Number one, if you're not already a subscriber, what are you doing, friend? Take 2 seconds out of your day. Go to iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Play, maybe even Spotify. I don't even know all the places the show is at now. But take 5 to 10 seconds out of your day, subscribe to the show so that you'll know each and every week when a new episode drops. Number two, if you're already subscribed, thank you. I appreciate it. Now, please, I'm going to ask something. I really need 1 to 2 minutes out of your day. Go to the iTunes store, give me a rating, give me a review. Ratings and reviews are a surefire way to make sure that more people get exposed to the show, and ultimately more people, more trainers, more coaches that get exposed, the better our industry is going to be. So 2 minutes out of your day can make a massive impact on young coaches and trainers that haven't seen the show yet. So my friend, as always, thank you so much for your support. I truly love and appreciate you, and we'll be back soon with our next episode. Take care.